Hey guys, what's going on? I want to talk to you about different types of line, their different properties and how they all act differently. And last but not least, how to store it, what kind of effects different weather has on them and things like that. All this information is brought to you by Sunline. This is their information that they've done, their own testing on all their Sunline. So first off, we're going to start with the specific gravity of water, which is a number 1. And nylon or monofilament is a 1.14, which means it's going to sink, but at a very, very slow pace. So anything that's 1 or less is going to float. Anything that's greater than a 1 is going to actually sink, but very slowly. So you go to fluorocarbon, it's a 1.78, which means it's almost twice as dense as water. So that's why it does not float at all. It definitely sinks and a lot faster than nylon. When you get into braided line or PE line, it's a little bit less dense than water, so it totally floats. So that's why it's a good option for, you know, your top water baits and things like that. But if you're trying to drag a worm on the bottom directly connected to that line, really not a good choice. The D braid that Sunline had was actually a sinking braid. It's being replaced by the All Might, as you can see right here on this form. And the All Might is in between a monofilament and a fluorocarbon as far as the density, so it's going to sink kind of in between those two. So if you look at the next page here, we've got sinking speed comparisons. Fluorocarbon is going to sink 4 times faster than monofilament, and the PE or braid, of course, again, is going to float. Feel free to pause this video if you need to try and catch up or anything like that. And then we're going to abrasion resistance. And abrasion resistance is a big difference in the components and characteristics of mono or nylon versus fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is way more abrasion resistant. So Sunline has this machine. They take these lines, they put them under a certain load, 600 grams, so it's stretched tight, and they rub basically like a sandpaper up and down this line so many times, 10 times for this test. And you can see the monofilament was much more roughed up by this test than the fluorocarbon. So the mono lost 30% of its strength, and the fluorocarbon stayed up there at 93%. So that's why fluorocarbon is one of the better options for fishing heavy cover, fishing rocks, docks, brush piles, things like that. It's a much stouter, truer line around abrasion than the monofilament is. One of the key things I get asked for about line is how to store it, where to store it, and what kind of effects weather conditions have on it. So we'll start with mono or nylon again. And if you look at it, the straight strength is not really affected very much by heat or cold, but your knot strength is really affected in monofilament. So it's down 10% in hot, high temperatures, 140 or better. So if your baits are laying out on your deck in a hot summer day, they might be getting close to that temperature. So monofilament is not a great option for really high temps. Fluorocarbon is the next one. You look at it, and if you notice a trend in the fluorocarbon and braid, cold is actually harder on your line than heat is. So if you look at fluorocarbon, the knot actually strengthened under high temperatures. The straight strength of the line, which means not where your knot is, but just between your reel and your bait itself, that's not really going to be affected, but your knot strength is what we really want to care about and look at. And under hot temperatures, fluorocarbon, really not a whole lot difference, but cold temperatures, it dropped a little bit. And then if you look at the braid or the PE, the straight strength is, again, pretty similar, but the knot strength in the cold, again, was down. So basically my takeaway from this is if you're going to leave your line somewhere, be worried more about the wintertime, the off season when you're not fishing, than in the summertime or leaving it in your boat, leaving it in your truck, things like that. But that being said, this last slide right here is the line surface changes due to UV light. So if you're using mono, UV light is absolutely terrible for it. You can see how much it breaks down. Again, this is over extended periods of time. This is 500 hours and 1,000 hours. So used to, everybody thought that your line was really affected by the sunlight, and it is, but more so the mono than the fluorocarbon. If you look at the fluorocarbon images, really not a whole lot of change. So again, two key tips that I have for this is keep it out of the sunlight, direct sunlight, and try and keep it at just a room temperature. So if you've got, you know, a dark storage area, or just keep it inside a box in your garage or wherever you store your boat, that's a great option, but try and regulate it somewhere around that room temperature. Make sure you check out these tips and more at Real Deal Tackle's YouTube page.